Welcome, Rabbi Cohen. We've been excited to see you. Thank you very much for your time. I know you've got a lot of family obligations, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I'm glad to be with you. It'll be a big shkoach on. You say you finished the fifth parak.
That's correct, yeah.
How many daf is that now?
Well, we've done 340 shiurim, so yeah, it's quite a bit. We on 55. We're entering the 56th shiur. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. That's such an awesome achievement.
So yeah, thank God we plodding consistently.
That's the key point. People tend to forget that a little bit, and then it adds up.
Yeah.
And you have something of significance that you've achieved.
Yeah.
So I want to just share with you an idea. This is an idea from the Nefesh HaChaim. The Nefesh HaChaim was written by Reb Chaim Volozhiner, who was one of the prime Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon. And the Nefesh HaChaim is a fascinating work. It basically describes and helps you understand a little bit the role of a human being, and in particular of a Yid, and more particularly of a Yid learning Torah in the whole scheme of things. So one of the things he quotes from is this coming week's parsha, where the whole incident with Yaakov and the Melachim, with the ladder. Okay. And it says, and he saw a sulam, he saw a ladder, mutzav arza, set on the ground, and the top reached to the Shemaim, umalachei Elokim, and the angels of Hashem, oilim v'yordim bo, they would go up and down on it. Now, just to understand a little bit, when we learn Torah, we have to know that Torah has many levels. Many levels. I intended looking it up, but I haven't had a chance. But I remember seeing, for example, that the classic Alice in Wonderland. Right? It was written by
Lewis Carroll.
Lewis Carroll. Now, Lewis Carroll was a mathematician. Correct. And I haven't looked it up, but I remember seeing a reference to it that Lewis Carroll embedded in Alice in Wonderland. He embedded a whole lot of mathematical things. I haven't seen it. Now this is what a simple person, a human being does. He embeds in the text a lot of other things. Now, how much more so? You can't even speak about it in the same breath. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu has many layers of chokhmah in all of Torah. That's one of the reasons that if you look around, you can see you can have a 5-year-old that's learning Torah, and a 15-year-old, and a 50-year-old, and an 85-year-old, and they're all learning the same Torah, they're all learning the same Chumash, but there's a lot more depth in it at all different levels. So with that in mind, so it says that the Malachei Elokim were oilim v'yordim bo, they were going up and down boy. Now the word boy means on it, or it could be on him, or through him. In this context, it could be through him. They were going up and down through him. So explains the Nefesh HaChaim, explains Reb Chaim Volozhiner, again based on Kabbalistic sources, that we have to know that when we do mitzvahs and when we learn, we create spiritual forces that are olim, they go up, and then they yordim, and then they come down, they cause effect in this world. So when we do what seem to be us to be simple mitzvahs and simple learning and simple davening, we have to know that they're actually extremely spiritually significant actions. Now, this is not limited. A person thinks, okay, all very nice, but that's for the tzaddikim, that's for the Talmidei Chachamim and things like that. And that's not at all the case. It's not at all the case, because there's a famous Gemara, I'm sure I've mentioned it to you. It's a Gemara in Brochas. Rabbi Yochanan goes to visit Rabbi Lozer, and he sees that Rabbi Lozer is taking a lot of strain, and he's crying, he's sad. So he discusses with him. He said, why is it that you're sad? Why is it that you're sad? And he discusses very reasons why he might be sad. He said, you might be sad because of Torah Deloy Avshas. You haven't learned as much Torah as you wanted to. And he says, you should know, it says clearly, Echad Amarbe ve'echad Amamit, where the person does a lot, a person does a little bit, as long as he directs his heart to Shamayim. In other words, you can have two people. Let's say the one guy is learning an hour a day, but he's learning 60 minutes out of that hour. And you have another guy that is learning 10 hours a day, but he should actually be learning 11. So the guy who's getting 60 minutes out of his 1 hour is actually quite far ahead of the guy who's getting 11 hours he's getting 10 hours out of 11. Because what each person does, according to their capabilities and their circumstances. And you've got no idea. I remember once I can't remember hearing it on a shiur, reading it. It says you could have a guy and he's got some sefer, and he's sweating over the sefer, and he's trying to apply himself, and he's trying to understand what the author said, and he's just not getting it. He's not getting it. He says it could be that this guy actually in Shamayim has more reward than the person that wrote the sefer. Because they're coming from different points. So we've got no idea what our effect is, but we have to know that, like it says in the Parsha, Malacha Elokim oilim v'yordim bo. They come up and down by through him. Now there's a beautiful idea. There's a beautiful idea in V'zois Brocha, in the last Parsha in the Torah. It refers to the Torah with a very interesting phrase, Eish Das. There's an expression, Eish Das, Aleph, Shin, Daled, Taf. Now it's written as one word, Eish Das, but we read it as two, Eish, fire, Das, religion. Fire, religion. And it's written as one word, but we read it as two. So Rabbi Arran Kotler Zatzal, it was actually his Yortzeit, he explained a very powerful idea over here. He says, in truth, Torah is fire. We've got no clue about the power of Torah. The Gemara says that the Torah preceded creation. There's a statement in Kabbalah that it says, Hashem and the Torah are one. We've got no idea about what Torah is. And he says, and that is like fire. But it also is das. Das is like, that's where the word dati comes from, a religion. Now, a dati religion, that is a connotation of laws and details, mitzvahs, what to do, what not to do, things like that. So what we have to know is that when we are involved in the das, when we are doing our best to understand what the laws are, and they can be whatever, as you've been learning, laws of damages and other things, when we are understanding seemingly mundane laws of damages, but we are doing our best to understand it, we have to know that that's actually connecting to very, very powerful spiritual things. You know, a simple example of that is an electric switch. Okay, so you know you got all the different new cars and things, right? So you just push a button and the engine starts, right? In South Africa, we've got so many things. The guys push button and electricity comes on or comes off, as the case might be for large, you know, for millions of people. It's just one finger, one button, right? Lahavdil, you've got, you know, while Trump was in office, everybody was worried about which buttons he would push, right? So we see small actions can actually have huge, huge ramifications. And this is what we have to know. So you can have a yid wherever he's sitting in the world, and you try, and especially a chabur over here, and you're trying your best, you're doing your best to get pshat in what the Gemara is saying, right? Please understand that it's exceptionally relevant. Right? Malachi Elokim olim v'lo yodim bo. The malachim are going up and down. Right? You've got no idea of what's actually happening in Shemayim in terms of those efforts. After 120, and there's no rush, but after 120, you'll be able to see a little bit what the effect has been of what you're doing. So a big yeshur koach, and you guys should go mamish michal l'chai, you should go from strength to strength.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure.
Very much.
Okay.
We were looking forward to this. Sometimes seeing you gets us through what feels like quite a marathon. But you know what? It's been an interesting learning curve, I think, for all of us, because it's all very well in the beginning when there's a novelty. When the novelty leaves and you still persist, that takes a lot of hard work from everybody. And I want to thank everybody that's put in all this time to join me on my learning journey and to learn with friends. There's no better way to have the culmination of the day than seeing all my friends and learning with them. So thank you, all of you. And thank you, Rabbi Cohen, for guiding us when we got stuck. Your shiurim, especially Arthur,
I listen to you every day.
Every day.
I feel like I haven't missed you.
I'm good. So one of the things you'll see is, okay, so you're going and you're saying it, sometimes it seems to be a long haul and a long slog, but you'll see as it progresses, obviously you've already established that it's got a certain bite, it's got a certain advantage, a certain attraction, but you'll see just how much sweet it becomes. The more you know and the more you do chazorah, right, and the clearer it becomes, it becomes a huge pleasure. And as Hashem, that should be sweeter sooner rather than later.
Absolutely, amen. And guys, please God, we get to complete Bava Kamma and other masechtas, and we live in good health and safety and security. And listen, Hashem. I want to thank Hashem.
Listen, add up the hours that you've been learning, right?
Sure.
Right. So just think, Baruch Hashem, how much Netflix you've missed.
Netflix is not that good, by the way. So that's not
okay. So I'm not talking from a position of personal knowledge or whatever.
Okay.
But I'm saying other guys, right, have invested all of their time and effort into becoming morons. Right? They've just wasted their time. That time's mamish gone down the toilet.
Absolutely.
The time that they weren't, and said, you can look back over the COVID period, and you have hundreds and hundreds of hours of investment into your neshama.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Rabbi, you said something earlier that somebody who sometimes doesn't understand it must have been the one that wrote the Sefer Scrolls. Well, I definitely wrote a couple because sometimes I get so lost. I think I'm the author.
No, it is because you said you don't know. Is it the world? The world was so different. The world was so different. There's so many distractions, and it's so difficult to focus on things, you know. So you know, like lahavdil. You have a guy, and he's let's say he's an Olympic sprinter.
Yeah.
And then lo aleinu, something happens, and next thing he's in rehab. And after a while, they're clapping hands when he manages to take 3 steps. Right?
Yeah.
The generation we're in, you know, rehab is a very, very mild term to it. Look at what has happened to the world over the last 100 years.
Sure.
Yeah.
Look
talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm saying you look at what's happened in the world, and you see, you know, like, you know, everybody who sits in front of a Gemara for however long is a hero.
Yeah. About that rehab story, my daughter a couple of years ago was the fastest runner in school, and she hurt her leg, and she spent 1.5 years learning to walk again. So I know the experience of somebody can run and suddenly, I got so excited when she could, move her leg, never mind just, a few inches, and eventually, get up in the wheelchair and take a step. It was like a big, big thing for her.
So that's
now
what it
she's
is.
Fine, Baruch Hashem, but you can see the difference.
It's a big chesed. So you must know there were previous times. I mean, Rav Shach told the story. He told the story. It was a very interesting story. He says that when he was a little kid, the game the children played, the game was going to the Beis Medrash and learning. So now let me explain to this. There's a very insightful thing, because when kids are kids, what games do they play? They pretend to be adults. So if you grew up in the time of Western, the games you played were cowboys, right? Or you played cops and robbers, or you played doctor. You played as a little kid. You pretended to do the things that the adults were. That was like really exciting life as an adult. So he was just illustrating when he was growing up, the kids, they aspired to be in the Beis Medrash. That was exciting, right? So it was a very different world.
Wow.
It was a very different world. And that's what I'm saying, to be able to, here we were swimming upstream so much. And then, you've got now in Israel, even more than before, you've got, institutionalized adversary to learning and to being from and things like that. So our achievements, we mustn't underrate our achievements.
There was something, just Rabbi Cohen, that I think Gavin wanted to ask something, but before that you mentioned on Thursday night in your Moshe Cohen shiur, which I heard a lecture, funny enough, by Douglas Murray, who wrote a book saying the maddening of crowds. Okay, and the irony is he mentioned what you did. Obviously, you said it with the Torah-based context, which illuminated the thought, as he was saying, in the last 5 years, and I mean, it's the world has gone into such a selfish space where they find that the identity is based on their own individual sexuality, of how they acknowledged either as a transgender Y or a Z or whatever it is that they now are, and that their individuality, and they want their own space, and they want their feelings to be heard in safe spaces. And it's all about finding identity through the self. Whereas what we can see from learning Torah every day and being part of the Jewish community in both South Africa and Israel is that one finds their identity in the meaning of being a contributor to others, a helper to others. And when other people are battling with certain tests and trials, to be able to be there for them and make it a life a little bit easier, that's where true meaning is. And the world has gone, only in the last 5 years even, contrasting to that. One doesn't even have to go to Rav Shach's generation to see how far we've fallen in a few years. And you did bring this up in the Parsha, and I think that constant Torah learning and constantly being involved in the community has given us a sense of what it is to be a human being and to give to others.
Without a doubt.
Thank you for that.
That's what I said. You're part of your chabura, you're part of your chevra, you give to one another, you motivate yourself, you live a meaningful life, right? Somebody I learned with, say he's qualified as an actuary. And we were just talking about life and the decisions they make. So he said there was somebody that he was together with a number of years ago in a certain large company. And he moved out of it, and this guy stayed with the large company, and he's now been he's got his golden handcuffs to this company. He says the guy is living in Hyde Park. He's paying rent of $75K a month. He's not paying off a bond at $75K. He's paying rent of $75K. Money down the drain. This guy is so busy. He has no time for his family or his friends. but he thinks he's successful.
Right. Sad, really.
It's very, very sad. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These guys are chasing around and they're living meaningless lives.
Yeah.
So Ashreichem, how fortunate you are that you're connecting with friends and you're connecting with something that's meaningful.
Absolutely. Rabbi Cohen, thank you. Gavin, did you want to say something before we leave? I saw you.
No, mine's not a question. I just want to make a comment. Is that Damon thanks everybody except himself. The amount of effort that Damon has put into this whole project has been unbelievable, and he preps for this. We all actually prep. That's another thing as well. We left it. How many hours have we done so far?
Sure.
How many hours?
Gavin, it's an absolute fortune. I've worked it up, but
whatever, it's double because we all prep for at least an hour on Shabbat minimum. Often we do 2 hours. I probably do about 2 hours, I think.
Yeah.
To try to put ahead. So we're doing about 2 hours prepping, plus Damon shiur. That's what I just got to add. No, so you don't double it. You got to add extra 2 hours from Shabbat. But that's still a remarkable achievement there. And he's done an amazing job because none of us were learning Gemara at that specific time. We are doing some other Gemara with things like hour, but that's only twice a week. So this is broadened out to like 5 days a week, which is absolutely unbelievable, man. And he's a very good teacher. Man.
Thank you.
When we learn, I want to tell you something. When I sit and learn, I'm just doing from my own experience, and Arthur and Kevin will have their own. Let's say I sit down for about 2 hours. I will cut it about 85%, sort of 80%, like what I need to know for the class, in case David asks questions or to make sure I know what's going on. But there's always that 15 or 20% that I can't quite get it. It's either missing or something like that. And I know there's no point rereading it again. I don't have enough time. I've read through the notes. I can't find the solution. So I'm just going to wait for David to cover it. And lo and behold, every single time he fills that gap. So by the time we finish this year, you kind of understand it 100%, So which is
awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, and Kevin, thank you as well for joining. I know you took go quite a journey to be here on time with Israeli transport. I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much, guys. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for the prep.
Before you go.
The prep has been the secret because the reality is, if Rabbi Cohen, I think you gave me this advice, is that when somebody gives over shiur, if you've addressed it for the first time and you're still thinking on point number 2 and there's 6 points that are joining, it's difficult to keep audio pacing unless you've got a sense of what's going on. So the preparation has been the key to a lot of your success. And for us to make sure that the pace is functional and it makes a lot of sense. And that preparation that you do has been very, very successful. So I appreciate you giving up a lot of your time to do the preparation as well. And for your questioning and allowing me to grill you guys and not taking it badly. And thank you for allowing that. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Rabbi, one last thing. I'd like to, Rabbi Cohen, like to Rabbi Chaim, doing Chaim Cab.
Thanks, Arthur. That's sweet.
Okay. It's a smicha from your friends. That's kosher.
Yeah, I make them fall asleep in the shiur, so I've got my smicha.
Okay, very good.